Hello and welcome. I promised a viewer of mine to make a video about color harmony and in particular in terms of watercolors. But I'm going to do it more general because color harmony is the same across the board regardless of what kind of colors you use. So why does this look really awful? This is my 24 set of Ergosoft pencils. And when they lie like this, I don't feel like using them because they look horrible. It's disharmonious. It's ugh. But let's just fix it. Ah, much better. Rainbow order. Now they look good. And why was that? It's because color harmony is depending on colors having something in common. If we took the primary and the secondaries up to about here, these, there's a way to put that over there. These we could arrange around the color wheel nicely. I have here a CMY color wheel. So the yellows would be like a little bit like that. It's pretty much a primary yellow, this one. Then we got no oranges, but we got some reds and magenta and some warm reds like that, and we get some moving over towards violet and blue. We got different blues here. Close to a sign, we move into the greens, the mid greens, the yellow greens, and I got a blue I need to place, so it's right there. Good. And that's about, now we just turn it around instead of having them lined up. Colors that are close to each other on the color wheel look good together. So greens and greenish blues are good together. Greens and yellows are okay. Yellows and oranges, there's actually an orange. Uh, Yellows, oranges, and reds are okay. Reds and purples and violets or some of the blues are okay. But if we take them across the color wheel, like the blue and the orange doesn't necessarily look good together. It's kind of a lot in your face, and that's because these are contrasting colors. They come from the opposite of the color wheel, and they do not have very much in common. This blue is pretty much devoid of yellow and has maybe only a little bit of magenta in it. This is yellow and magenta. So the less they have in common, the more ugly they look together. Like this one here, this red and that green have also very little in common. This one has a lot of yellow in it, and that the green actually doesn't have a lot. That's dominated by cyan. So these two could also be problematic to use together. And the same with the violet and the yellows. They don't look good together. All of these that are left, they will look okay together. Um, These are grays, browns, and earth tones. And this is a muted green in here. These will always look good because they are kind of a mixture of everything. So they place somewhere closer into the middle of the color wheel. See, they look like something like that. So all these colors would place around here. The blacks should be actually in the dead center because black is when everything is mixed in together. I took the white away because that's kind of a special thing on its own. So working with color harmony is either to pick things that has something in common or to make them have something in common. I do not want to go into total color theory mode here. I will suggest that you look up color wheels. Um, and familiarize yourself with that. The important part here is the contrasting colors, and the contrasting colors is always directly opposite of the color wheel. So now they call this a blue, this is a violet. Violet and yellow are contrasting colors. Blue and orange, uh, reds and greens are magenta and green are opposites of each other. Um, the colors on the outer rim of the color wheel are really bright. They also what you would call high chroma. They're really in your face colors. Some people also just in general call them primary colors, even though the primary colors are really only magenta, cyan, and yellow, cyan, and magenta. Um, some people also call the mixtures where you have mixed just two of them at the time together. They sometimes also called primaries. It's not true. If you mix them, you two primaries, you get a secondary, and if you mix more of one of the parenting colors, that you get what is called tertiary colors. Tertiary color is not a term that is used very much, though. We'll mostly talk about primary and secondary colors. But primary and secondary colors, they're all very bright, and the secondary and the tertiary colors is characterized where they are mixed by only two primary colors. You don't mix in a third one. Then we have here um, this turns. So if we put this key color on magenta, you can see there's four colors on the inside of the rim on both sides. And those eight colors that they have shown us here are all mixed by green and magenta together. You can see as closer we get to the middle, the more grayish it gets. Ideally, as I said, it should be black in the middle. It's not always so, depending on pigments and stuff, because pigments are not perfect color theory always. Some better than others. But close to the middle here, we got grays, and out close to the rim, we got muted colors. You can see they are clearly the same color as out here, but a little more gray or brown as we go in. Color harmony is achieved when you have colors that got something in common, as I said. It could be that they're close to each other on the color wheel. It could be all the way out on the rim, or it could be a group of colors here in closer in towards the middle. Color harmony can be achieved in a ton of ways, or not a ton of ways, but in several ways. You can either pick colors that uh, are close to each other on the color wheel, um, and that has something in common. That would be with colored pencils or markers or something where these color pencil doesn't necessarily mix all that well. I'm just using them for illustration. I'm not gonna use them. I'm gonna use watercolor here, and I'm gonna try and explain how to achieve color harmony in a painting. It's a simple principle, but it has a lot of implications and lots of ways to do it. I have picked two contrasting colors here. This is permanent red light. That's an orangey red. And on the opposite of the color wheel, we find a bluish green like this one. This is called Viridian in this. This is Van Gogh watercolors. It's not a true Viridian. This is a blue, phthalo blue shade green. Phthalo green, blue shade. I guess is that right. And these two colors doesn't look good together if you put them up next to each other, especially if they have equal areas. They contrast. They will fight for your attention. So if I was to paint something with these two colors in the same painting, it would be a little bit of a challenge if I used them just straight off the palette. But let's try and adjust them a little bit. Now, if one example of something that has this color could be like holly leaves with the holly berries. That's a very traditional Christmas theme in some countries. There's a couple of things I could do. I could just leave the red as is. Okay, we make the berry because we want the berry to be the one that stands out. Now we have to do something with that green because it's too bright and it has nothing in common with that red, or very little at least. So what we can do is we take just a little pinch of the red and we mix it in with the green. Not much, and it really has to be so little that the green is still maintaining its good bright color and it's definitely still a green. Now these two colors doesn't fight over attention quite as much. Um, the green even got a little bit darker. So that is one way. If you still think that that red is too bright, you can do the opposite to that. We can take some of that green, and really not a lot, and mix in with the red. And as I said, not a lot. I meant it. That was too much. We add some more red. Now we still got that bright red, but now it got an undertone of brown actually in it. Now they match even better. And if you want to know what happens when you mix pretty much 50-50 of contrasting colors, they go to black or near black. Now, the green here tends to dominate, so this is a very gray green mixture. We can add some more red if we want. But that's what happens when you get contrasting colors. You get something very muted. See if I can hit pretty much a black. Yeah, that's close. It looks better if it leans towards green. So mixing colors that are actually contrasting, that you have to paint up close to each other, mixing them in with each other will actually help you achieve something that doesn't look awful, even though it's a challenging subject to do. Another way of harmonizing colors can be to prime your painting surface. This works best with translucent um, colors. I'm not gonna do it a little too dark here, but you prime it with some kind of a color and a light wash of it. If it's watercolor, it has to be really thin. If it's other paints, you can go up and make it darker because in acrylics and oil and stuff, the bottom layer doesn't shine through very much, if at all, so that they can carry a stronger bottom layer. You let this dry and you just paint your painting on top of it as you would normally do it. And when it's transparent paints like watercolor, this will then shine through all the colors you put on top of it. And that will harmonize it again. Then the common color they would have is, in this case, the yellow ochre I made a base layer of. The drawback of this method is that you get the same amount of yellow in all the colors you paint on top of it. If that's not to your liking, you can also use it as what is called a key color in your mixes. And say, okay, if we try to do this mix again with the red and the green. Now we don't mix the green in there, but we mix a tiny bit of the yellow ochre in. That muted it down as well. We take the green, we add a bit of yellow ochre to that. Now we again get two colors that are quite harmonious, but they don't, the color they got in common is not each other, it is a third color. You can't change the color harmony over a a painting, so you have more of something dominating in one area and some other colors in a different area. And that's the complex application of this is to do that, is to use them in there. So this is a different way of using that yellow ochre. Um, a third way to make a key color is that if you decide your palette consists of maybe yellow ochre, that red, and that green, is to mix a color that will be your key color, but it's a mixture of all three. And a mixed key color doesn't have to be pretty, because you don't want to maybe use it directly in the painting, but this is a color that we only make to mix in to a little bit into all the colors we use on the painting. So third go here on that. So we add a little bit of that. And you can see it doesn't change that the color of the red a lot, but just a little bit. Same with the green. Now we add a little bit of that into it. And let's just add some yellow ochre for good measure. Take this. There we go. So now we have harmonized those three colors together with a mixture of the three. That's the really basics of it. Make things have something in common. I am a big fan of mixing my own colors. If you pick colors, you have to develop an eye to it, and you might want to use a color wheel to help you a little bit, but beware, the color wheel is not the full story, especially printed ones like these, where it's made in cake slices. There's a little more colors back here because there's some colors, the primary colors and the secondaries and some tertiaries with mixed in with white and mixed in with black, but still that doesn't even tell the full story. Color wheels I find is mostly useful to learning principles and ideas from. So yeah, that's the base of this. The application of it is way more complex, because I'd say if you pick colors that is close to each other on the color wheel, things might also end up being a little boring. An example could be if we take the earth tones. I don't have very many here. I got a burnt umber. I got the yellow ochre that we already talked about. And we got a burnt sienna. So these three look good together, but there's not much we can do with them because they're all yellowish red, brown. We can add another muted color to it that I got here, that is Payne's Gray. And because these are actually close to each other in here, the Payne's Gray is over here close to cyan, but it's close to black as well. The middle should be black, as I said. And the other ones are kind of over here around red and yellow and orange. But overall, they're pretty close together. They contain all three primary colors because they are muted colors. Um, but there's maybe missing a little something in here. So if I was to do a painting with that, I would probably pick something brighter to to add to it, depending on what subject I would paint. I would maybe pick, this is a cerulean blue. Could add that, thin it out a lot, like having a pale wash of this as a sky with the rest painting the subjects. Now a palette like this will have very strict limitations because they are so muted. This is pretty much as green as anything can get. It's very olivey green. It is a green, but it doesn't stand out much from the other things. As far as I remember, a purple is pretty much impossible because this is too orange, so it's not red enough. Yeah, that just gives us a gray on the burn number here. This is also not good with that. Yeah, you get a different brown, but you can't make a purple with these. I have another earth tone here, and that's, I think it's called light red. This is also an earth tone, but that's more reddish. But if I'm not mistaken, these won't make a purple. Yeah, it just makes another. It is a purplish gray if I'm lucky, and I'll put enough of the red in there. But but not super. We already got the burnt sienna here that's kind of orangey, so that's the best orange we can get. We can try. That should not be that. Let's just pick the red again here. And mix in. So that's as orange as that pretty much get. But you can see they look fairly okay together, but that cerulean blue really sticks out compared to the rest. Um, so I would maybe mix something in the cerulean blue in all actuality to make that stand out a little less, but it is still standing out, but not as much anymore. Um, so if you look at different color groups, if we talk about like pastel colors, they all contain a degree of white pigment, so that's their common color. It can be difficult to paint an entire painting only with pastel colors. You might need to add a gray or something to get some contrast in there. Um, yeah, that's it's as I said, the base of it is really simple, but the way to use it is very complicated because you might want to use contrasting colors sometimes, and but not too much, and that's also a balance. But that's the fun of painting is to develop your own sense of color. Watch people talk about colors is really interesting because everybody kind of have their own feel for it, and what colors you choose to have on your palette once you get experienced enough to actually decide what colors you want or does not want on your palette is also interesting. I love watching other painters talk about what pigments and what colors they choose on their palette and for what reasons. Um, yeah, I think that's all I want to say right now because this is the color harmony is having something in common and knowing how to put colors together that might not match after all. This is just a like a introduction to it. I will make more videos where I talk about some things more in detail. I did make another video and it was 50 minutes long and I could just go on and on forever talking about matching colors. But if you follow these things where you match things in together and use key colors and harmonizing them with each other, you're well on your way to get some better color harmony in your paintings. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and come back. I sometimes make better paintings than this.